If you've tried using ChatGPT for your podcast but found that it gives you really flat, generic answers, then I'm happy to report that you are not alone. You're actually among most ChatGPT users who don't know how to prompt it and then feel really frustrated by the results that it gives them. And the truth is, if you do learn how to prompt it correctly, it can be an incredibly powerful tool to help you make a podcast that is incredibly unique to you and really resonant with your audience. Because let's be honest, the last thing we need is another podcast that sounds like every other podcast out there. Am I right? Okay, but first, I'm Huete. I'm a podcast producer and the creator of the Emerging Voices Podcasting Accelerator, where I help people create really meaningful and magnetic podcasts. And usually people come to me when they're feeling overwhelmed by the tech, or they feel nervous that their idea just isn't quite good enough, or they're nervous about what people will say when they put their show and themselves out on the internet. If that sounds like you will want to book a free 20-minute discovery call with me where I'll tell you more about Emerging Voices, and I would love to hear about you and your podcast. Now, if you're wondering why you should trust me, here are all of the shows that I have produced. Now, in this video, we're not hacking our way to better content or anything like that. We're actually learning how to use AI in a more intelligent way so that it gives us the show that we know is in our hearts. So, the important thing for you to know is if you stick around to the end of this video, I have a little bonus for you. So keep watching. All right, let's go. The first way that I see most people using ChatGPT is to help them come up with questions for their interviews. The issue is what ChatGPT is going to spit out for you is going to be less than stellar. It's going to be watered down. It's going to sound like a robot wrote it, right? And we don't want that. And I know this because clients and aspiring podcasters tell me this all the time. I use ChatGPT to write my questions. And I'm like, babe, I know. Okay? And we don't want that for you. So here is a prompt that you can use, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to use it in order to actually come up with some really good questions. First, I'm going to tell ChatGPT its persona. So you are an award-winning podcast interviewer. I'm preparing to interview, let's say for my podcast, I'm going to interview Esther Perel, because she's a couples therapist. My podcast is going to be about love. All right. So I'm going to interview Esther Perel, renowned couples therapist, about closure after a breakup. And what are 5 unique, emotionally resonant questions that I could ask that go deeper than surface level? Format it, so you want to ask it to format it as open-ended, natural conversation starters. So here are the questions that it comes up with. What do we usually mean when we say we want closure? And what might we actually be asking for on a deeper and more emotional level? Hey, help me come up with interview questions for my podcast about closure after a breakup. What if I had just asked it for that? Do you see the difference in the quality of the kinds of questions it's giving me? When you hear the word closure, what does it mean to you? Versus, you've said before that breakups are not always about the ending of a relationship, just the end of a particular version of it. What could that mean for people trying to let go but still feeling connected? And this is a conversation starter that actually allows you to have a meaningful and rich conversation with someone who knows a lot about the subject. So you want to make sure that you tell ChatGPT its persona. So it is an award-winning podcast producer or podcast interviewer. You want to make a very clear ask, come up with these kinds of questions, and then tell it any context that it needs to know. Who is the guest? Why are you interviewing them? What is the kind of podcast that you are making? All of that allows ChatGPT to give you a much more meaningful answer than the one it would have originally given you. Now, the second way that I would use ChatGPT is to help me sound more natural and more like myself in the interviewer seat, okay? So this is something that I hear from a lot of people, or even what I see in some of my students in Emerging Voices. They are super charismatic conversationalists, but when it comes to actually recording a podcast, suddenly they get stiff and they say, "Hi, my name is so-and-so, welcome to such and such podcast." And it's like, everything is tight and we can tell. All right. So we want you to sound more like yourself. I want to sound more like myself. So what I would ask ChatGPT is, you're a podcast coach who helps people find their natural voice. Here's how I talk or text with friends. And I'm going to attach an image of like a conversation that I had with a friend. This is a message that I sent her. "Hey love, I'm going to a yoga day retreat. It's an hour-ish away. I think they have a few spots left if you're interested. Ashley will also be there." So I'm telling ChatGPT, hey, use this sample. So if you give ChatGPT an example, it tends to do much better than if you don't. So I'm giving it an example and I'm saying, how can I bring more of this tone into my podcast intro, solo episodes, and transitions? Keep the suggestions practical. So I'm using it as a coach, all right? Here is what it's gonna give me. Your natural texting tone in the screenshot is warm, relaxed, and inviting without trying too hard. It feels like you're sharing something because you genuinely want the other person to enjoy it too. That's gold for podcasting, especially intros and solo episodes. Here's how to practically bring that vibe into your show. All right. So it gives me some practical suggestions for podcast intros. It tells me, instead of saying, "Welcome to podcast name, the show where we explore XYZ," it's telling me to say, "Hey love, today I'm bringing you something a little special." I wouldn't actually say love on a podcast because that would not feel genuine. But I would say, "Hey, today I'm bringing you something a little special. Think of this as a yoga day retreat for your brain and your heart." And then I would keep going. Or if I was making solo episodes, it's encouraging me to use more soft invitations and relational phrasing, just like in my text. So I might use language like, "If this speaks to you, consider doing XYZ." Or, "You're so welcome to just listen and take what lands." I wouldn't say "you're so welcome," but I'd say, "You're welcome to listen and just take what lands." Or I would say, "I thought about you when this came up," and go on with whatever it is that I want to talk about in the episode. An example opening line is, "Here's what's been on my mind. If you've ever found yourself holding on to something long after it ended, this one is for you." And I love that. I would actually say that. It also gives me suggestions for transitions between segments. So instead of, "Now let's dive into the next topic," I would say, "Okay, quick little shift. Imagine we're on a walk and I'm like, oh, this reminds me of something." And then I go into my second segment or second section. It also gives me ways to close the episode. So an example is, "All right, my love, that's what I got for you today. If this stirred something up or made you feel seen, I am so glad. Talk soon." Actually, this is not that far off from how I close my YouTube videos. I usually say, "All right, that's it for me. I will see you in the next video." And this is not that far off. So you can use it almost like a mirror. ChatGPT is holding a mirror up to you and telling you, this is what you sound like. Do more of this to sound more like yourself. And having this kind of structure and these kinds of suggestions allows you to sound natural when you sit down in front of the mic. All right, if you're watching this and finding it super helpful, you will appreciate that we have tons of other videos on this channel, really just created to help you get started with your podcast. And if you are serious about actually creating your podcast this year, make sure to book a free discovery call with me below, and we can talk about whether Emerging Voices is the right fit for you. Now, the third way that I'd use ChatGPT to make a better podcast is by helping me come up with really good titles, really magnetic titles. And that is because, first and foremost, our titles should be search engine optimized, right? So when someone's searching for some words, our podcast should come up at the top of that list if our podcast relates to what they're searching for. But the second thing is, even if they weren't searching for that and they just came across it, is the title compelling enough that they would actually listen to the episode? I work with a lot of people who, when they first start podcasting, they name their podcast something like Episode 4, Self-Worth and Change. And that might mean something to you, the creator of the podcast, but it means nothing to us, the listeners of the podcast. So here's the prompt that I would use. All right, so you're a podcast copywriter who writes viral titles. I am making an episode about closure where I interview my ex-boyfriend. That's your topic. Give me 5 compelling, curiosity-driven title options under 12 words. Include at least 1 that sparks emotion and 1 that promises transformation. My show is for, and then you insert your audience or who you think you're trying to reach. All right, I'm trying to reach smart 30 and 40 something single women who have achieved all of their career goals, hate online dating, and are looking for love. So it gives me these. I asked my ex why it ended. Here's what he said. What happens when you call your ex for closure? The conversation that finally set me free. We broke up, then I interviewed him. Was it me or was it him? So these are all valid options that I would start with and think through. I would even test it with my audience. So I would ask them, would you click on this? And I would just choose one of these and ask them if they would click on it. So we can actually go a lot deeper on understanding your audience using ChatGPT. It can do a little bit of market research for you. Most of us, I think, when we start, we think, I'm making this podcast for me, but from 5 years ago. And while that is a decent place to start, it's not actually giving you a clear sense of the exact questions that people are searching, the exact issues that they are trying to solve for, and the emotional core of what is coming up for them today. So you might want to ask ChatGPT something like this. You are a strategist for niche podcasters. My show is for, you insert your listener. What are 10 real questions they're Googling this week that I could build episodes around? Include why each question matters to them. Now, we know that my ideal audience are smart 30 to 40 something single women who have achieved all of their career goals and hate online dating and are looking for love. So this is what I would prompt it, and it would give me, below are 10 real emotionally relevant questions your audience is likely Googling or silently stewing on this week. Is something wrong with me if I still haven't found love? How do I meet someone without using the apps? How do I stop choosing emotionally unavailable men? Can I trust myself to know if it's a good relationship? Where are the men who want depth, not just situationships? Now, what this does is it actually helps you stop guessing. It helps you title your episodes correctly. It helps you think about episode ideas that are actually relevant to your audience, assuming that you can actually speak to some of these things or you plan on interviewing someone who can speak to some of these things. Now, the last thing I'll say on this is that I know a lot of people feel like ChatGPT is going to make them dumber, so they're nervous about using it, or it's going to make them less creative, which I think is actually quite valid, but it depends on how you're using the tool. The tool should not be telling you how to think. You should be telling the tool how to think and what to do. So make sure you always tell it who it is, give it some context by providing it as much information as you can. If you can give it an example, even better. And make sure that you ask a very clear ask. And if you're able to tell it the tone that you want it to deliver the information in, even better. If you've gotten all the way to this part of the video, then congratulations, you have just won a secret prize. If you click the link in the description below, you will find a guide that has all of the ChatGPT prompts that we talked about here, as well as an additional bonus one that I haven't mentioned in this video. Now, if you are watching this and you're thinking, I actually really want to learn more about Emerging Voices, the podcasting accelerator that I run, then feel free to book a free discovery call using the link in the video description. I will see you in the next video.